The sound of the USSC Endeavour's dark energy reactor roaring to life after 1,000 years of dormancy shook the very foundations of the planet Zephyr 6. In that moment, Lawrence Webb knew he had just gambled the fate of the entire galaxy. Only hours earlier, Lawrence, a human engineer, had been urgently summoned by an excavation team on the remote frontier world. The Kamarian xenoarchaeologists, led by the esteemed Dr. Korvac, had unearthed an enormous spacecraft of unknown origin, predating any known civilization. Lawrence could scarcely believe his eyes as he stepped inside the colossal vessel. It was a supercarrier, larger than any ship he had ever seen. Despite its age, the hull and interior were pristine, as if frozen in time. The technology was centuries beyond anything the Komar or humans possessed, especially the advanced dark energy reactor at the ship's core. As they ventured deeper into the cavernous hangar bay, they discovered a fleet of highly advanced fighters and weaponry. Dr. Korvac's unease grew with each new revelation. He insisted they seal the ship immediately and report the discovery to the Komar High Command. But Lawrence's curiosity got the best of him. He convinced Korvac to let him try interfacing with the ship's systems. When he initialized the main computer, it came to life, identifying the vessel as the USSC Endeavour. The ship had been deployed on a classified mission a millennium ago, but never reached its destination. Suddenly, alarms blared as a massive Komar battlecruiser emerged from warp, demanding the derelict ship. Lawrence suspected they wanted the advanced technology for themselves. Tensions skyrocketed as weapons were powered up on both sides. With no other choice, Lawrence made a desperate gamble. He fully activated the Endeavour. To everyone's shock, the ancient ship's shields held against the Komar onslaught. Lawrence fired back, crippling the Komar cruiser. As the smoke cleared, the gravity of the situation hit Lawrence like a punch to the gut. This derelict human warship possessed unimaginable power, and now the Komar knew about it too. He realized they were sitting on a powder keg that could ignite an all-out interstellar war. The stakes had never been higher. Lawrence knew he had to unravel the Endeavour's secrets and true purpose before the Komar returned in force to seize it. The fate of humanity and the galaxy itself now rested on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, his hands trembling as he gripped the unfamiliar controls, knowing there was no turning back now. It was all up to him. Lawrence's fingers danced across the Endeavour's control panel, his brow furrowed in concentration as he delved deeper into the ship's computer systems. The holographic displays flickered, ancient data streaming across the screens. With each new piece of information, the puzzle began to take shape. The Endeavour was sent to investigate a distress signal, Lawrence reported, his voice echoing through the bridge, from an unknown alien race at the edge of the galaxy. Dr. Korvac paced behind him, his four eyes wide with worry. "We must inform the Komar High Command. This could be the key to preventing a war." Korvac tapped on his communicator, the device chirping as it connected. He spoke in urgent tones, his native language a series of clicks and trills. But as the conversation progressed, his face fell. "They're not interested in diplomacy," Korvac said, his shoulders slumping. "They want the Endeavour's technology for themselves. A fleet is already on its way." Lawrence thumped his hand on the console. "We can't let them take the ship. We have to find out what really happened out there." An idea sparked in his mind, and he turned to Korvac. "The Endeavour's warp drive. It's far more advanced than anything we have. We could jump to the coordinates of the distress signal, find out the truth." Korvac hesitated, his mandibles clicking nervously. But as the reality of the situation sank in, he nodded. "It's a risk, but it may be our only chance." As they prepared for the jump, Lawrence noticed an anomaly in the ship's schematics, a hidden section, sealed off from the rest. Curiosity gnawed at him, and he ventured into the depths of the Endeavour. The room was dark, the air stale. In the center stood a single stasis chamber, frosted over with age. Lawrence wiped away the condensation, revealing the face of a human man, his features chiseled and stern. With a hiss, the chamber opened, and the man gasped, his eyes snapping open. Lawrence stepped back, his heart pounding. Who are you? Lawrence asked, his voice shaking. The man sat up, his movements stiff. Captain Aiden Novak, USSC Endeavor. Where am I? What's happening? Lawrence quickly explained the situation, the words tumbling out in a rush. Novak listened, his expression growing grave. The distress signal, Novak said, his voice hoarse. It was a mission of peace. We were meant to establish contact, forge an alliance. With Novak's knowledge and Lawrence's skills, they worked to bring the Endeavor's systems to full power. The ship hummed with energy, the ancient technology coming to life. On the sensors, the Komar fleet appeared, warships dropping out of warp with weapons primed. But before they could engage, Lawrence punched in the coordinates, and the Endeavor leaped into warp, the stars stretching into lines of light. They emerged in a debris field, the wreckage of ships scattered before them. Among the twisted metal, Lawrence spotted the distinctive hull of a human vessel. The USSC Prometheus, Novak breathed, his face pale. Our sister ship, sent as backup in case things went wrong. As they maneuvered through the debris, sensors pinged with a new contact. An escape pod, battered but intact. They brought it aboard, the airlock hissing open to reveal a wounded alien, its form unlike anything they had seen before. Korvac tended to the alien, his medical training taking over. They placed it in stasis, the pod system stabilizing its condition. Lawrence accessed the alien ship's logs, data scrolling across the screens. The truth unfolded before them, a chilling realization. The distress signal was a trap, Lawrence said, his voice hollow. A ploy by a rogue faction to capture our ships, our technology. The Prometheus was overwhelmed. The Endeavor barely escaped. Novak clenched his fists, the weight of the revelation heavy on his shoulders. We have to warn them. The humans, the Komar. This threat could destroy us all. But as they debated their next move, the sensors screamed in warning. Multiple warp signatures closing fast. A combined fleet of Komar and alien ships, led by the rogue faction. The Endeavor stood alone, caught between two fronts. The fate of two races hung in the balance, and the decisions made in the next few moments would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. The Endeavor shuddered as the combined Komar and alien fleet dropped out of warp. Lawrence's fingers flew across the control panel, his heart pounding as he brought the ancient ship's defenses online. Beside him, Novak barked orders while Korvac worked furiously at his station. Shields at 80% and rising, Lawrence called out. Weapons systems coming online. A brilliant flash lit up the view screen as the alien ships opened fire. Plasma torpedoes slammed into the Endeavor, the impacts reverberating through the hull. Lawrence gripped his console to keep from being thrown to the deck. Hull integrity holding, Novak reported, his voice tight with tension. But we can't take much more of this. Korvac's hands danced across his terminal, establishing a data link with the Komar ships. Broadcasting now, he said, explaining everything about the trap and the aliens' true intentions. For agonizing seconds, there was no response. Then several Komar vessels broke formation, turning their weapons on the alien fleet. The bridge crew let out a collective breath of relief. Auxiliary power to weapons, Novak ordered. Target their flagship's warp drive. Lawrence complied, routing power to the main cannon arrays. Under Novak's guidance, he locked onto the enemy ship. The Endeavor's ancient weapons lashed out, tearing through the alien vessel's shields and ripping into its warp core. Direct hit, Lawrence whooped. Their warp drive is offline. The alien ships, suddenly outgunned, began to scatter, but one vessel broke off, accelerating straight toward the Endeavor. Collision course, Korvac shouted. Impact in 10 seconds. Novak lunged for the helm controls. Hold on, he yelled as he wrenched the ship into a steep bank. The Endeavor's engines screamed in protest as it veered away. Lawrence watched in horror as the kamikaze ship streaked past, missing them by mere meters. It slammed into a nearby Komar cruiser instead, tearing through its hull in a massive explosion. As the battle subsided, Korvac opened a channel to the Komar commander. Please, he pleaded, there's been enough destruction. Take them into custody. Let justice be served properly. After tense negotiations, the aliens surrendered. Lawrence slumped in his chair, exhausted but relieved. In the aftermath, Lawrence and Novak picked through the Endeavor's systems, assessing the damage. What they found chilled them to the bone. A bioweapon, Novak said, his face grim as he examined the data. Designed to mutate other species. They were going to use our own ship against us. Lawrence stared at the readouts in disbelief. We can't let this technology fall into the wrong hands again, he said. It's too dangerous. Novak nodded, his expression resolute. He input a series of commands, and alarms began to blare throughout the ship. Self-destruct sequence initiated, the computer announced. All personnel evacuate immediately. They raced to the escape pods, launching away from the doomed vessel. From the window of their pod, they watched as the mighty Endeavor, a relic of humanity's past and a glimpse of its potential future, tore itself apart in a silent explosion. As the wreckage burned up in Zephyr 6's atmosphere, Lawrence turned to Korvac. The Chimerian's eyes were wide, reflecting the fiery destruction above. They had averted a crisis, but the cost had been immense. The escape pod hurtled through Zephyr 6's atmosphere. Lawrence and Korvac strapped tightly in their seats as the hull glowed red-hot from re-entry. With a bone-jarring thud, they touched down on the dusty surface of the human outpost. As the hatch hissed open, Lawrence stumbled out, his legs wobbly from the intense descent. He looked up at the sky, watching the last remnants of the Endeavor burn up in the atmosphere. A lump formed in his throat. We did what we had to do, Korvac said, placing a hand on Lawrence's shoulder. Lawrence nodded, his voice hoarse. I know, but now what? The answer came sooner than expected. Within hours of their return, tensions between the human and Komar factions on Zephyr 6 reached a boiling point. Lawrence found himself in the middle of heated arguments, accusations flying back and forth about the Endeavor's technology. Desperate for answers, Lawrence sequestered himself in the outpost's data center. He pored over the Endeavor's mission logs, decrypting layer after layer of classified information. As the pieces fell into place, his blood ran cold. Korvac, Lawrence called out, his voice urgent. You need to see this. The Kamarian rushed over, his four eyes widening as he read the screen. The Archon, he whispered. This changes everything. Lawrence presented their findings to a joint session of human and Komar leadership. The room erupted into chaos as he laid out his proposal for a united fleet. Absolutely not, thundered the Komar High Counselor, smacking his fist on the table. This is nothing more than a ploy to steal our technology. The human general across from him stood up, face red with anger. And what would you suggest? Sit on your hands while these Archon conquer the galaxy? As the arguments raged on, a commotion outside caught everyone's attention. Lawrence rushed to the window, his stomach dropping at the sight. In the prisoner transfer area, Archon captives had broken free, engaging in a firefight with Komar guards. Human civilians scattered, caught in the crossfire. We need to do something, Lawrence shouted, but his words were drowned out by the sound of gunfire and screams. In the aftermath of the jailbreak, Lawrence and Korvac huddled together, formulating a plan. They presented their idea to the still-shaken leaders, used the Endeavor's replicator technology to build a joint fleet. It's our only chance, Lawrence pleaded, but we'll need to retrieve a special alloy first. The mission to the dwarf star system was fraught with danger. Lawrence piloted their ship through the treacherous stellar winds, sweat beading on his forehead as Korvac monitored the sensors. Archon ships, Korvac hissed. They're already here. Lawrence's hands flew across the controls, weaving through the debris field surrounding the star. They managed to collect just enough of the precious alloy before the Archon ships detected them. Back on Zephyr 6, Lawrence initiated the replicator sequence with trembling hands. As the first components of their new fleet began to take shape, he exchanged a glance with Korvac. The real battle was just beginning. Lawrence stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the final stages of the Allied fleet's construction. The sleek, advanced ships hovered in orbit around Zephyr 6, a testament to the combined ingenuity of humans and Komar. Yet the air crackled with tension as officers from both species eyed each other warily. "Status report!" Lawrence barked, his voice tight. A human technician looked up from her console. "Sir, we're at 68% completion. The last batch of—" Her words cut off as alarms blared throughout the facility. Lawrence's heart raced as he saw the long-range sensors light up with activity. "Massive transwarp signature detected," Korvac shouted, his four eyes wide with fear. "It's them, the Archon." The command center erupted into chaos as the wormhole rift tore open in space. Lawrence watched in horror as ship after ship poured through, a vast armada of alien design, their hulls gleaming with malevolent purpose. "How many?" Lawrence asked, his throat dry. Korvac's voice was barely a whisper. "Over 1,000 warships." Lawrence banged his hand on the console. "Launch everything we've got, now!" Klaxons wailed as pilots scrambled to their vessels. On the display, Lawrence saw a pitiful fraction of their fleet, maybe 30 ships, rising to meet the Archon horde. Novak's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "We'll buy you as much time as we can. Get those defense platforms online." Lawrence nodded, watching as Novak's ships formed a protective screen around the planet. Beside him, Korvac's hands flew across his terminal, desperately trying to activate the orbital defenses. A crazy idea struck Lawrence. He sprinted for the nearest shuttle bay, shouting orders over his shoulder. "Keep working on those platforms, I'm going to try something." The unarmed shuttle rocketed away from Zephyr 6, straight toward the heart of the Archon fleet. Lawrence's hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Lawrence Chen of the Human Komar Alliance. I request an audience with your commander to discuss terms for a ceasefire." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a grotesque, alien face filled Lawrence's view screen. The Archon Admiral's eyes glowed with cruel amusement. "You dare to speak of terms?" The alien's voice boomed. "Your primitive races are unworthy to exist in our new order. We will purge this system of your taint and assimilate what remains of value." Lawrence opened his mouth to respond, but the screen went dark. He had only a split second to realize his mistake before searing energy engulfed the shuttle. In a blinding flash, Lawrence and his vessel were vaporized. The Archon fleet surged forward, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. Novak's ships fought valiantly, but they were hopelessly outmatched. One by one, they winked out of existence on the tactical display. On the planet's surface, Archon dropships pierced the atmosphere. Massive doors slid open, disgorging wave after wave of armored troops and towering mecha suits. The joint Human Komar Defense Forces met them with a hail of weapons fire, but they were forced back step by step. Deep underground, Lawrence and Korvac huddled in a reinforced bunker, watching the feeds from the surface with growing despair. A tremendous explosion rocked the facility. "The main replicator hub," Korvac said, his voice hollow. "It's gone." Before Lawrence could respond, a brilliant light filled the room. When it faded, Novak lay on the floor, his uniform torn and bloody. Lawrence rushed to his side, cradling the dying man's head. "The chip," Novak gasped, pressing a small data device into Lawrence's hand. "Earth's old defenses, contingency plans. It's our last hope." Novak's eyes glazed over, his final breath escaping in a quiet sigh. Lawrence clutched the chip, his mind racing. He turned to Korvac, a desperate plan forming. "We can't win this fight," Lawrence said, "but we can deny them their prize." Working feverishly, they accessed the chip's data and rerouted power from the ruined replicator hub. The bunker trembled as energy surged into Zephyr 6's geothermal core. "Evacuation complete," Korvac reported. "It's now or never." Lawrence took a deep breath and pressed the final command. The planet convulsed, great fissures opening across its surface. Magma erupted into space, engulfing scores of Archon ships. The shockwave rippled outward, shattering the alien fleet's formation. In the chaos that followed, Lawrence broadcast one last message to the surviving human and Komar vessels. Retreat and scatter. Live to fight another day. As radiation alarms shrieked and the bunker's shielding failed, Lawrence turned to Korvac. The Komarian met his gaze, a weary smile on his face. "We've shown them," Korvac said. "We may have lost the first battle, but we won't go quietly. Soon they'll realize marking us as easy prey was their gravest mistake." Lawrence nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over him. Together they faced the viewing port, watching as the storm of destruction swept across Zephyr 6. The Archon reinforcements were arriving, but they would find only ruin here. In these final moments, human and Komarian stood side by side, united in defiance against the alien horde. Though they would not live to see it, their sacrifice had sown the seeds of a resistance that would shake the galaxy to its core.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.